r/no sleep, posted by Throwaway Civic 99, 8 hours ago. I bought a used car off Craigslist for $1,200. I figured out why it was so cheap, and now I can't get rid of it. Being broke isn't just a lack of money, it's a lifestyle. It's a constant, suffocating math equation that you do in your head every time you walk into a grocery store or look at a gas pump. When my '03 Sentra finally blew its head gasket on I-95, I didn't see a repair bill. I saw the end of my employment. I deliver pizzas and run Uber Eats. No car meant no job. No job meant no rent. I had exactly $1,400 in emergency savings. That was it. I scoured Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and the shady back pages of local forums for 3 days. The market is garbage right now. Everything in my price range was either a rust bucket with 300,000 miles or mechanic special, which means dead on arrival. Then I saw the listing. 2008 Mercury Grand Marquis, black, 85K miles, runs good. $1,200 firm, cash only, must pick up tonight. For those who don't know cars, the Grand Marquis is basically a couch on wheels. It's the twin brother of the Ford Crown Victoria, the cop car. They are tanks. And 85,000 miles on a Panther platform engine? That's barely broken in. That car should have been listed for $5,000 minimum. I messaged the seller immediately. No profile picture, name was just Jay. I have cash, I can come now. He replied in 30 seconds. An address. It was way out in the sticks, a storage unit complex near the old industrial park. I know, every horror movie starts this way. Don't go to the second location. But poverty makes you brave, or maybe just stupid. I called an Uber, gripped a canister of pepper spray in my jacket pocket, and went. The storage complex was a grid of corrugated metal under flickering sodium lights. Standing in front of Unit 44 was a guy who looked like he was made of beef jerky and nicotine. He was skinny, vibrating with nervous energy, wearing a grease-stained hoodie. The car was parked halfway out of the unit. It was beautiful. I mean, in a menacing government issue way. Black paint, tinted windows so dark they looked like ink, and black steel rims. It looked like the kind of car the men in black would drive if their budget got cut. Runs? I asked. Runs perfect, Jay said. His voice sounded like gravel in a blender. He didn't look at me. He was scanning the perimeter of the fence line. V8. Cold AC, new tires. Can I start it? He tossed me the keys. I got in. The interior was pristine, gray leather, but there was a smell. It wasn't the usual old car smell of mildew and stale fries. It smelled sharp, like bleach and ozone, or maybe heavy copper. It smelled like a hospital waiting room at 3 a.m. I turned the key. The V8 roared to life immediately. Smooth idle, no check engine light. I revved it a little. It sounded angry, deep and throaty. "I'll take it," I said. Jay looked relieved. No, he looked frantic. We did the paperwork on the hood. He signed the title over with a shaky hand. I handed him the envelope of cash. He didn't even count it. "One thing," he said, shoving the money into his pocket. He leaned in close, his breath smelling like instant coffee and rot. "Don't dig around." "What?" "The car. Just drive it. Don't go pulling up the carpets. Don't go looking behind the panels. It's an old car. You start pulling threads, the whole thing falls apart. Understand?" "Sure, man. I just need to get to work." "Go," he said. He was already walking away, back into the dark recess of the storage unit. "Get out of here." I drove off. The suspension was stiffer than I expected for a luxury sedan. Every bump in the road felt deliberate. But for $1,200, I felt like I had just robbed the guy. The first 3 days were fine. The car, which I named the hearse due to its size and color, was a beast. I made good tips. The gas mileage was atrocious, but the engine was bulletproof. But the weirdness started creeping in on Thursday. I was doing a late-night delivery to a complex on the north side. I had the radio off. I hit a speed bump a little too hard, and I heard something roll. Thump, roll, clack. It came from the trunk.
I frowned. The trunk was empty. I had checked it when I bought it, just a spare tire and a jack. I lifted the liner, spare tire tight in its well, jack secured. Paranoid, I muttered. I got back in the car. As I put in drive, I noticed the radio. The display was glowing green. It said aux. I didn't have an aux cord plugged in. I pressed the FM button. It stayed on aux. I pressed the power button to turn it off. It stayed on. Then a sound came through the speakers. It was faint, barely audible over the engine. Static, a rhythmic, wet clicking sound, like someone chewing with their mouth open. I mashed the power button. Nothing. I punched the dashboard, percussive maintenance style. The sound cut out, and the radio went black. Loose wiring, I told myself. You get what you pay for.
Saturday is when I found the modifications. I was vacuuming the car at a self-serve wash. The bleach smell was getting worse. It was giving me a headache, clinging to my clothes. I decided to deep clean the interior. I was vacuuming under the driver's seat when the nozzle hit something hard that wasn't the floor rail. I reached under and felt a metal box bolted to the floor. It wasn't factory. It was a matte black box about the size of a router with a thick bundle of wires running under the carpet toward the center console. I followed the wires. They ran up into the dash behind the climate controls. I sat in the driver's seat, staring at the dash. Jay's warning came back to me. Don't dig around. But I'm the kind of person who picks at scabs. I used a flathead screwdriver to gently pry the trim off the center console. It popped off easily, almost like it had been removed 100 times before. Behind the plastic facing of the AC controls, there was a switch. It wasn't a cheap toggle switch from AutoZone. It was an industrial-looking toggle with a red safety cover, the kind you see in aircraft movies for arming missiles. It was zip-tied to the frame of the dashboard, hidden completely unless you removed the trim. My heart started doing that nervous flutter. What was this? Kill switch? Nitrous? I started the car. The engine purred. I flipped the red safety cover up. I took a breath and flipped the switch. Clunk. A heavy mechanical sound echoed through the entire chassis. It came from the back. It sounded like a deadbolt sliding into place, but louder, heavier. Then the rear windows went black. I don't mean they rolled down. I mean they went opaque. I scrambled out of the car, panic rising in my throat. I looked at the rear windows. Inside the glass, sandwiched between layers, a liquid crystal film had activated. The windows were completely blacked out. You couldn't see in and you couldn't see out. I ran to the back door and pulled the handle. Locked. I used the key fob. The front doors unlocked. The back doors stayed rigid. I went back to the driver's seat and flipped the switch off. Clunk. The windows cleared. The locks disengaged. I sat there for a long time, the vacuum at the car wash screaming in the distance. This wasn't a normal mod. You don't put LCD blackout glass and magnetic deadbolts in a 2008 Mercury unless you were transporting something you really, really don't want people to see. Or someone. I should have sold it right then. I should have driven it into a lake. Instead, I went to the trunk. If the switch controlled the back doors, maybe it controlled something else. I remembered the rolling sound from earlier. I emptied the trunk completely. I pulled out the spare tire. I pulled out the felt liner until I was looking at the bare metal of the floor pan. There was a seam. It was incredibly subtle, hidden by the body sealant, but there was a rectangular cut in the metal floor of the trunk, right near the back seat firewall. I went back to the front, flipped the magic switch. Clunk. I ran back to the trunk. The rectangular section of the floor had popped up an inch. I lifted it. It was a false bottom, a compartment about 6 inches deep, spanning the width of the trunk. It was empty. Well, mostly empty. In the corner of the hidden compartment, stuck to the magnetic paint, was a single small Polaroid photo and a fingernail. I recoiled, slamming the compartment shut. My stomach turned over. The nail was painted pink, chipped. I picked up the photo with trembling fingers. It was blurry, taken in low light. It showed the back seat of my car.
In the photo, a man was sitting in the back seat. He was wearing a suit, but his head? His head was covered by a thick black leather hood, and his hands were zip-tied to... I looked closer at the photo. There were D-rings welded to the floor of the car under the back seat cushion. I threw the photo back in the hole and slammed the false floor shut. I ran to the front, killed the switch, and put the trim back on with shaking hands. It's just a drug runner's car, I told myself, trying to regulate my breathing. That's all. They moved product. Maybe they kidnapped a rival. It's over. That's why Jay sold it. It's done. I needed the money. I needed to work.
Sunday night, last night, was when it all fell apart. I was driving home around 2 a.m. The roads were empty. A light rain was falling, making the asphalt slick and black. I was at a red light when the radio turned on by itself. AUX. The static was back, louder this time. Cut, cut, wheeze. Stop it, I said to the empty car. Then a voice cut through the static. It wasn't coming from a broadcast. It sounded like a recording being played back or a call coming through a very bad connection. Is the package secure? A male voice, distorted. I froze. A second voice answered. It sounded like Jay, the seller, but younger. Secure, approaching the drop site. The subject is agitated. Thump, thump, thump. The sound of banging coming through the speakers. Someone banging on metal. Gas him, the first voice said. I don't want bruises. A hissing sound filled the speakers. Then the banging stopped. I was hyperventilating. I reached for the volume knob to turn it down, but it wouldn't budge. Then the GPS screen on my phone flickered. I had Waze open, navigating home. The map spun. The destination rerouted. New destination, 44.291. Coordinates. I tried to cancel the navigation. My phone screen froze. Then the car accelerated. I wasn't touching the gas. The pedal depressed itself, pulling away from my foot. The V8 roared. I slammed on the brakes. The pedal was stiff, unyielding. The ABS didn't kick in. The car ignored me. We were doing 60 in a 35. No, 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 I screamed, grabbing the steering wheel. The wheel locked. I wrenched it with all my strength, but the power steering was fighting me with hydraulic force I couldn't match. The car took a left turn, tires screeching, drifting perfectly through the intersection. We were heading out of the city, toward the industrial park. I clawed at the door handle, locked. I pulled the lock pin manually. It snapped back down instantly, pinching my finger. I realized then that the modifications weren't just about keeping people in the back. They were about control. This wasn't just a car. It was a drone, a remote-controlled delivery system. The radio voice came back. Driver override engaged, bringing the asset home. Asset? I was the asset? Or... I looked in the rearview mirror. For a split second, in the flashing streetlights, I saw a shape in the back seat, a black hooded shape. I whipped my head around. The back seat was empty. The car was doing 90 now. We were on the highway. I grabbed my pepper spray, useless against the car. I grabbed my phone to call 911. No service. Of course, the car probably had a jammer in that black box under my seat. I unbuckled my seatbelt. If the car slowed down, I was going to tuck and roll. I didn't care if I broke every bone in my body. The car began to slow. We were taking an exit, a gravel road. I recognized the trees. We were heading toward the old quarry, miles past the storage unit where I bought the car. The car came to a crawl, rolling over the gravel. The headlights cut off, plunging me into darkness. The dashboard lights died. The only light came from the moon. The car stopped. Clunk. The switch sound. The back doors locked. The windows blacked out. Silence. I sat there, heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I waited for a door to open. I waited for a man in a mask to drag me out. 5 minutes passed. Nothing. Then the radio lit up again. Just a text. Trunk open. I felt the car shift as the trunk lid popped. I heard footsteps on the gravel. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Slow, heavy. They walked up to the rear of the car. I heard a grunt of exertion. Something heavy was being lifted. The car's suspension sank low in the back. Thud. Something massive had been dumped into the trunk. The trunk slammed shut. The footsteps walked around to the driver's side. I scrambled to the passenger seat, pressing my back against the door, holding the pepper spray out like a talisman. A face pressed against the driver's side window. It was Jay, but he looked wrong. His eyes were wide, pupils blown out. He was holding a remote control device, like something you'd use for an RC plane. He tapped on the glass. "I told you," he shouted through the glass. "I told you not to dig. I told you just to drive." "Let me out," I screamed. "I can't," he yelled back. "It's not my rotation anymore. I sold the debt. You bought the debt." "What are you talking about? The contract is with the car." Jay looked terrified. He looked past me into the dark woods. "They need a driver. It needs a registered owner to operate on the roads. I did my 10 years. I fed it. Now it's yours." "What's in the trunk, Jay?" He whimpered. "Just drive. The coordinates are set. If you don't deliver it within the hour, the gas vents open inside the cabin this time." He stepped back and pressed a button on his remote. The engine roared to life. The locks clicked. "I'm sorry," he whispered. The car peeled out, throwing gravel at him. I wasn't driving. I was just a passenger in the driver's seat. That was 6 hours ago. The car drove me to a location I can't describe. It was a concrete building in the middle of a forest. A garage door opened. The car drove in. Mechanical arms removed whatever was in the trunk. I didn't look. I squeezed my eyes shut and hummed so I wouldn't hear the sounds of wet meat slapping against concrete. Then the car drove me home. It parked in front of my apartment building. The engine cut. The doors unlocked. I ran inside. I locked my door. I pushed my dresser in front of it. I'm typing this now because I don't know what else to do. I have the title. My name is on the registration. 10 minutes ago, I got a text message from a number that was just zeros. Delivery confirmed. Payment processed. I checked my bank account. $5,000 have been deposited. I want to run. I want to leave the country. But I looked out the window a moment ago. The Grand Marquis is parked on the street, and the headlights are on. It's watching me. I think I have another delivery tonight.